Hello, everyone. This is a second live, and I've got a couple of really good questions that came through that I'm going to try and address today. So, those of you that don't know me, I am Soma. I help and guide women to shape their outer realities by doing some inner alchemy work. And really try and build a better relationship with themselves. So I do like workshops and one-to-ones as well. But I really wanted to do these lives because I guess it's just my way of engaging with you guys, and plus I see a lot of miscommunication, a lot of information that's not communicated correctly, and I just felt like it was I should do the best that I can to maybe address some of those questions that everybody has, and I feel like it's not addressed properly. So as always, I'm just going to answer to the best of my ability through what I've learned through life, but also through my own studies as well, and you can take it or leave it. There's absolutely no reason for you to take my truth. I always try and encourage people to listen to their own bodies and listen to their own truth. But a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about is stuff that I've studied and that I've learned and that I know. Okay, so yeah, take it or leave it. So the two questions that I got that came through, the first one was two big questions, by the way. So the first question was, what is a yogi? And then the second question that came through that I'm going to try and address is what is divine union, or what is a healthy relationship? And actually, for the second question, I had to tap into my masculine and write notes down. So I might be looking down at my notes just to make sure that I don't go down a rabbit hole, because I think with both of these I can probably go down a big rabbit hole. So the first question, what is a yogi? Well, I'll tell you what a yogi is not. A yogi is not someone who practices yoga asanas on a mat 5 days a week. There's a lot of slogans and t-shirts and people that in the community that think that, okay, well, if I practice yoga 5 days a week, that makes me a yogi. It doesn't. A yogi, for me anyway, in my belief system, the ultimate yogi is Shiva. So if you can honestly say to yourself, yeah, I'm at a level of someone, a being of that, or of that energy, then wow. But I wouldn't call myself a yogi. Firstly, in yoga there are there's 8 limbs of yoga. 4 are internal and 4 are external. And the practice that you do on the mat is only one part of the external practices. And some people say that yoga is a philosophy, and I also feel like this is a little bit of a get out for some people, because they think that, oh right, okay, well, I know yoga is a lot deeper than the practice on the mat, so I'll just say yes, yoga is a philosophy, and they feel like that gets them out of, or it kind of allows them to be appropriate. I personally don't believe that yoga is a philosophy, or there are principles that you need to abide by. For me, yoga kind of over permeates all of the teachings of Tantra, the Bhagavad Gita. It kind of encompasses all of it. So it's a real way of being. And I think you have to master these 8 limbs that there are. And then when you master those 8 limbs, and a part of that is to reach higher states of consciousness and live in this higher state of consciousness all the time. So that means you see love and beauty in everything and everyone, in the challenges in life, in the difficulties in life, in everything, right? It's a pretty challenging place to try to get to. I certainly wouldn't call myself a yogi at all. I certainly have not mastered the 8 limbs of yoga. I do the best that I can each and every day. And if you want to learn about like the 8 limbs of yoga, then I'm sure there's lots of like books that you could read, and there's probably loads of YouTube videos that you could go on to learn about the many practices, the many ways of being that you need to incorporate into your life to try and reach this level of consciousness. And then maybe you can acquire that label yogi. I don't know. I'm sure there are some yogis out there. I'm sure there's some yogis out there that, you know, are, I mean, I've never come across one, but maybe up in the Himalayas or in these types of places, maybe. I don't know. I just also feel like to be a yogi, you also need to be able to navigate life. Like, there's no point sitting in meditation or sitting in a cave or being like this guru or someone who's like out of touch with the world. I think if you really want to practice yoga, it's how you live it and breathe it, and you incorporate it into your everyday actions, your inner chat, your inner reality, as well as your external chat and your outer reality as well. So it's quite a big subject to try and help you to understand, but a yogi is someone who has reached a higher state of consciousness, lives and breathes the 8 limbs of yoga, has probably mastered the 8 limbs of yoga, and lives in a higher state of consciousness. So if you're that person, then yes, you're a yogi. But if you're not, then you're not. Okay. So the other question was, gosh, and this one I've been trying to unravel and unpack all week, and I've been waking up in the middle of the night and getting like downloads on how to answer it accurately, and then so I've been scribbling notes in the middle of the night just to make sure that I do my best in like addressing this question, because it's a big one, and I think it's so relevant with everything that's going on right now. And the question was like, what is divine union? What is like a healthy relationship? So, okay, so I'm going to go through my notes because I just have to. So firstly, like, I'm just going to be talking about like general relationships. So if you're someone who's in an abusive relationship, or you're being physically, emotionally harmed, then that's just a relationship that you need to try and remove yourself from. But the type of relationship that I'm going to try and talk about more is like your kind of everyday relationships, your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, and if you're single as well. Okay, and those of you that know me and those of you that have read my book will know that I've had a messy, chaotic experience with relationships, and actually through that messy, chaotic experience, like, I could say to myself, well, I'm absolutely no person that you should come to get that advice. But because I've had these messy, chaotic, toxic relationships, it's actually led me down a path of studying and learning. And this is probably where my knowledge comes from. And I'm still studying, and I'm still learning, and I'm still navigating relationships even now. I'm still trying to figure it out in my heart, figure it out in my head. So I think the first thing that's really important to mention is that relationships are very personal to you. And we are often really influenced by society, so the expectations that society places on us, our communities, our friends, our families, and influencers as well, especially right now. And I think that it's really important to know for yourself what is a healthy relationship, what is divine union, what does it look like for you, without getting pulled into everybody else's story. And what I mean by this is for instance, whenever I was going through relationship problems, or I was in a relationship, I would go to my friends, or I would speak to family about advice and guidance. But their advice and guidance was coming from their experience, was coming from their bias. So their advice and guidance was probably not right for me anyway. But because I wasn't self-aware and I didn't know how to listen to my own intuition, I was so lost that I couldn't do anything but look outside of myself. And then, you know, I'd doom scroll and look at all of these influencers giving me advice and guidance, and I would take it on board, but it never ever felt right. Something always didn't ring true for me. And what I realised was that in time, that they're functioning and they're telling you a story from their narrative. So maybe they've experienced unhealthy relationships or toxic relationships or whatever it may be, and they're talking from that point of view. But that doesn't mean that it needs to ring true for you. So what I teach my women, and what I think is so important, is that you have like that internal awareness, like you build that awareness inside of yourself, and you get to know you, and you get to know what your needs are, what lights you up, what you can compromise on, what you can't compromise on, okay? And what I call that, and what I feel like anyone who's in a relationship or is single or navigating through a tricky, turbulent relationship, is that you need to sit down with yourself and ask yourself, well, what are your non-negotiables? What are the things that you are just not willing to negotiate on, not willing to compromise on, not willing to settle less for? Okay? And what I do and what I did was I used my astrology, so I kind of, I use my astrology for a lot of stuff, like it kind of helps me to navigate my life. But I think like my advice would be is to, like, you know, if you're into astrology, if you've got a birth chart, use that to kind of guide you. Because the sun, the stars, the moons, the cosmic energy that you are made up of and are connected to knows what's good for you. So if you can access a birth chart or astrology and help that to compile a list of like what works for you, what are your kind of innate needs. If you're not able to be self-aware enough to tap into what your actual needs are, not what society is telling you, not what the world outside is telling you, but what's actually good for you and good for your nervous system. So I would start with that, like have your list of non-negotiables, the things that you just can't compromise on. And when you've got that list of non-negotiables, right, and this is the bit that is probably going to trigger you, but it needs to be said, and it is the truth, and this is actually what divine union is. Once you've got that list of non-negotiables, it is then your job, your work, to cultivate that list in yourself, okay? So you cultivate that list in yourself. So you become that list of non-negotiables for yourself. So if you're looking for, you know, like attention, or, you know, like you want your husband or your partner or your wife to give you some more attention or support, or you want to see more communication or a level of emotional maturity, or to feel provided for, you need to become that yourself. You need to be that. And that is not an easy thing to do. You could do like a surface level bit of work and be that, but if you really want to embed that and embody that into your system, then you need to become that non-negotiable list for yourself. Because at the end of the day, what divine union is, it is not about finding a person to complete you or bring you joy or make you happy or give you what you need. Your divine union is with yourself. Your divine union starts with you. And then the counterpart can come in. And his or her role is to support you on your journey. So it's almost like you're in this parallel place with him or her, and you're growing together. And the growth is not easy. I'm not saying that when you find that beautiful partnership with whoever, I'm not saying that growth is easy and all just suddenly becomes like a bed of roses. I've certainly not experienced that yet. But you have to grow together. And that's icky, and it's sticky, and it's frustrating, and it's going to really like push your boundaries. It's really going to push your boundaries. And that is kind of the function and the purpose of life, is like we're here to grow, we're here to expand. And if you want to find that number one person to be with you, to grow and expand with, then you're going to have to go through the ickiness. But I feel like to begin with, you really need to cultivate that wholesome within yourself. That feeling of I am whole and complete with or without someone. And if you're in a relationship, it's probably like a little bit trickier to navigate if they don't understand this type of language. So then what I would advise is that you still sit down and create this list of non-negotiables. But maybe there's like a tiny, like there's just one point on that list that you could work on for yourself. Like for instance, if you want your partner to give you more time or have more quality time with you, then start there by giving yourself quality time. Making time for yourself. Finding what lights you up, what gives you joy. And what I find is that the moment you do that, the moment you kind of cultivate that beautiful relationship with yourself, that begins to kind of ripple and shift in your reality anyway. And somehow magically, and it does happen, and I've seen it happen and I've experienced it, is like your partner can level up or expand or change, or you'll see little changes. So it's not so much about sitting down with your partner and saying like, I expect you to do this and I need you to do this and da-da-da-da-da-da. It's more about you sitting with yourself and saying, these are the things that I feel that I need, and then becoming that for yourself. And it can take a lifetime. Like it's not so much about the destination, it's more about the journey, and the journey can take a lifetime. And I know that can be difficult to hear, but I feel like there's so much not misinformation, but there's so much information out there, and I feel like it can be quite overwhelming, especially now because the divine feminine is rising. So we as women are really up leveling, and as we're up leveling, our expectations are becoming higher as well. We expect more from our partners, and I feel like the divine masculine, and I don't mean because I know the divine masculine feminine kind of, we embody both, but I feel like men are kind of lagging behind a little bit, and they're playing catch up. And what I'm seeing, what I really don't align with and I don't agree with, is all the man bashing that's going on. Like, I just don't understand the people that do that. I really don't see how that's going to be helpful to any situation. I don't see how that's going to be helpful in creating divine union collectively or in your personal lives, because that's not going to be supportive and encouraging to men, because it must be an absolute struggle for them too to try and reach that level that you're expecting them to be, because society and empowerment coaches and female coaches are now telling you like, your man needs to provide for you, and your man needs to protect you, and your man needs to do all of this, and you're like, yeah, awesome. But what if you're in a relationship where, you know, he is struggling financially for whatever reason? Are you just going to say to him, F off? Are you going to, you know, sabotage your whole relationship just because, you know, society is now telling you that your man needs to provide and you should just kind of lay back and be the divine feminine? I think there's a lot of confusion about what the divine feminine brings to a relationship and what the divine masculine actually brings to the relationship as well. And I also feel like this is something that you need to try and unpack for yourself. So listen to the influencers, listen to people like me. But at the end of the day, it's all about really tapping into your own inner truth. And I help women to do this by building a relationship with themselves. cultivating that relationship with themselves and getting to know themselves better and being more body aware and being able to understand their intuition and what that sounds like, what that looks like. And I think once you get in touch with your intuition, it's a total game changer. There's so much more I could say about divine union. But I think the core of it is, and it's something that I'm also navigating through, I think the core of it is you really need to better your relationship with yourself. Whether you're with a partner, whether you're single or not, and I 100% believe, and I've seen this, is like the minute you change your inner reality, the minute you start working on yourself, your external reality begins to change. And that means the people in your reality as well, they begin to change, they shift, they reshape, they reform. I remember back in the day, I would just make lists of like my ideal partner. And I did manifest those partners into my reality, but I was never happy. I was always frustrated, or never felt like I was quite there. And most recently what I've realised is that it's not about the person that you're in a relationship with outside of you, it's about the relationship that you have with yourself. There's an internal struggle that's going on inside of all of us, you know, and the internal struggle isn't something that just goes away. It's something that we need to work with on a daily basis. It's something that we need to learn to understand on a daily basis. It's something that we need to learn to communicate with our partners, like openly and honestly, be transparent. And don't be fooled by all the fakery out there. And don't be fooled by all the influencers out there. Don't let their truth be your truth. Find your own truth. Be curious about what divine union means to you uniquely. You know, and if you can tap into ancient wisdom and knowledge like I have to support you through that, then do that. But don't put so much pressure on yourself to meet this fantastic ideal of what you see on social media. A lot of it's bullshit. Create what's real for you. And I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy journey. I'm finding out that it's not. But learn to love yourself first is what I think divine union is. I just want to make sure that I've covered everything. Talked about non-negotiables. Listen to your body. Oh, the nervous system. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is like when you do meet that person, or you start going into the dating scene or whatever it may be, like, do you know like that story that they tell you about, oh, the butterflies in your stomach and you get all excited? That's the kind of stuff you should run away from. Like, that's not your nervous system being regulated. Like, when you're in a relationship which is divine or guided by source or the creator or full of like love or a really true kind of partnership, then your nervous system should feel regulated. It should feel safe. It should feel like home. It should feel comfortable. I know like that's what it is for me. Like, for me, safety in a relationship is so important because of a lot of like my kind of childhood patterning and you know, the kind of the stuff that I carry. But I think it's so important that for me, and I think this is for most women as well, and for guys too, is like you need to feel safe in that relationship. There needs to be trust. Your nervous system needs to be soothed and regulated when you're in that person's company. You need to be able to be yourself, explore who you are. So all the kind of the butterflies in your stomach, you need to ask yourself, yeah, there's that excitement of like when you're going on a date, but it's not really displaying a regulated nervous system. It's showing you something else. So it's important to know what a regulated nervous system looks like, what it feels like, and that is what you should be trying to aim for in any partnership, any relationship. And I guess this doesn't even just mean divine union with like an intimate partner. It could be friendships. It could be any relationship in any area of your life, because a soulmate or divine union doesn't necessarily have to be like an intimate partner. It could be, I mean, I've got soulmates in a lot of my friends, and you could have a soulmate in a friend, in a sibling, as much as you can in an intimate partner too. Okay. Okay, I think I've covered most of what I wanted to try and cover, and thankfully I didn't need to go to my notes too much. But I think the last thing that I want to say to you is that I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you and it feels really esoteric, and like in theory it's like, sounds great. In practice, it's a head fuck and a heart fuck. What can you do? It's life. It's life. So just navigate it the best that you can. Find the people to support you that really resonate and align with you. Find your own truth. Cultivate your relationship with yourself is the most important thing. And go wherever the joy is, like wherever you're lit up, wherever you feel joy, try and be present with that and cultivate that in your relationships. So that's my life for today. I don't know how long that went on for. As you all know, I do these very intuitively. I am going to try and set a day, but I never know the time, so it's not something that I ever launch. But I will download it on YouTube, and you can access it there, or you can obviously listen to it here, share it amongst friends, family. If you have any questions, please go ahead and ask away. You know how to get me. You can get me on Facebook, get me on Instagram, or Messenger. Anyway, have a most beautiful day. That was an interesting Q&A. I wonder what comes up next time. I hope to do more and more of these. Probably not until January now. Anyway, let's just get through life. Thank you all.